The exponential growth in computing power and connectivity means that some of the products that you see around today will be obsolete in a few years. It will mean that many of the skills that you acquire today may not be useful tomorrow. So for many of you, as you start, the students here, or progress, the alumni here, in your professional journey, the question is, how do I navigate the future in these times of great change? How can I succeed in this ever-changing world? How, as is the theme of the summit, do I find clarity in uncertainty? But believe you me, these questions are no different than the questions that people ask themselves during the advent of the steam engine, to the birth of the automobile, to the time when one of our great presidents declared that we'll put a man on the moon by the end of the 60s, to the birth of the internet and everything that followed. The people who succeeded during those times of extreme change are no different from all of you sitting here in this Keynote hall today. They too did not have the power to look into the future and predict how things will evolve. But what most of these successful people in the past had were certain traits, habits, and behaviors that they carefully ingrained into their character. I came to the United States 20 years ago as I was transitioning in the midst of a big career change. At that point, I did not know anything about banking and finance, but I had an impassioned desire to learn about the profession. Talk about impeccable timing for a career change into finance. That was also the time when the great financial crisis was starting to take shape. I enrolled in a finance master's program, just like some of you here, around the time, and was witness to the crisis unfolding in front of my eyes. Through those uncertain times, I did what I needed to do to learn and acquire knowledge that was required to get me started. But I also knew at that point in time that that was not enough. What I realized at that point, and over the 30 years across 3 different careers, was that succeeding in any professional field is not always about skills and talent and good looks and charisma. It is about grit and gumption and character. In fact, it is about a number of traits that separate winners from the also-rans. It is about imbibing certain qualities that distinguish leaders from the crowd. It is about that X factor that you need. So, in all humility, as I stand before a young crowd filled with hopes and fears in equal measure, I will focus less on artificial intelligence and blockchain and spend my time discussing 8 habits or traits or behaviors that build up your X factor. These are examples of traits and behaviors and habits that I've seen in people who have achieved great success. People who have navigated changing times and great odds. These are also habits that I've, over the years, tried to inculcate in my day-to-day life. The first 5 of these are what I call foundational habits. And the 3 that follow are the boosters that I believe help you achieve escape velocity in your professional life when you need it. So let's kick that off. The first habit is showing up. As Woody Allen famously said, 80% of success is showing up. Yes, the foundational quality that will define you and set you apart is the simple act of showing up. Every day, there will be 100 things that dissuade you from taking that first step, and then another that lead you to your goals. Having the discipline to overcome any discomfort is key to succeeding in any venture. So whatever be your objective, show up and make it count. If you're at work, show up and finish your projects on time. If you're a sportsman, wake up at the crack of dawn, put on your gear, and head to practice. If you're a student, sit down every day and open that book to read, one page at a time. Just the act of showing up demonstrates discipline, focus, and hard work. When you show up, you tell the world around you that you mean business. And that goes a long way. People start to trust you and rely on you because they know you'll be there when needed. And if you constantly show up when and where needed, and especially when the chips are down, it shows persistence, the courage to go on, and will exude an attitude from deep within you that says, I'll never give up. So let me tell you this. Go to that class that you'd rather miss. Send that resume to one more company and spend that additional hour solving a problem that everyone else abandoned. The famous author, J.K. Rowling, is a great example of someone who imbibed this habit. A single mother living in abject poverty, her script for Harry Potter was rejected by 12 publishers. But she continued to write and continued to take her work to more and more publishers until one of them accepted her work. The rest of that story is on bookshelves and movie theaters around the world. For me personally, the idea of showing up also means bringing passion to work. Yes, some parts of daily work can seem like a grind, but it is important for you to still execute those tasks properly and with passion. Passion is infectious and will be a big motivator to the people around you as well. So that's the first habit to inculcate. Show up, and show up with passion. It really matters. The second habit is one of my favorites. Curiosity. Albert Einstein, on being asked about the foundations of his genius, famously said, "I have no special talents. I am only passionately curious." Curiosity is a fundamental part of growth. The act of inquiry that you cultivate in school, right here today, should never die. Ask questions, seek answers throughout life. I admit when you do that, some people may find you irritating. But believe you me, curiosity is an instinct of great scope. There was a recent article that I read on BBC that said, curiosity is a neglected trait that drives success. And research does show that when we feel curious about a subject, the facts that we are studying becomes deeply encoded and more accessible when they're needed. What I have personally tried to do and inculcate over the years is a habit-forming way of nurturing curiosity. Starting each day by browsing the New York Times, the Journal, and the Post, and trying to read at least one non-fiction book a month. If I'm at an airport, switch on a podcast. And these habits have helped me considerably over the years. Some of the best relationships I've built over the years have been through conversations about topics with people outside my professional boundaries. So be curious. Question status quo. Explore new possibilities. And always think outside the box. This alone will help you stand out. The third habit is something that most of us shy away from: asking for help. When you need to ask for help, do it. Overcome the stigma that is associated with asking for help. You'd be surprised at how many people will respond and genuinely try to help you out. throughout my journey, I've always found mentors, people who stop to lend a hand, and asking for help. I found there's also an opportunity to deepen a relationship based on trust and respect. So pick up the phone, call someone, write that email. It works. And always remember, asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness. It is one of the most uncomfortable things to do, but it is also very, very impactful if you do it the right way. A case in point is the one and only Steve Jobs. Jobs used to speak about a time when he was 12 years old and he called up Bill Hewlett, the CEO of HP. He told him, "I'm Steve Jobs, I'm 12 years old, I'm a student in high school, I want to build a frequency counter, and I was wondering if you have any spare parts I could have." Bill Hewlett laughed, gave him the spare parts, and also gave him a job that summer at Hewlett Packard. Now if you look at the way a 12-year-old Steve Jobs approached it, that's the way to do it. He was direct. I need your help. He was very specific about what he wanted. And it was very unlike the LinkedIn requests that I get where people ask, "Can I pick your brain?" He avoided apologies or disclaimers. Brilliant, direct, he asked and he received. Personally, my experience has been that no one I have directly approached for help has ever refused. So asking for help is okay. Most people will never ask for help, and sometimes that is what will separate you from the people who fail. The fourth habit that I want to talk about is something that will stretch you. I call it going the extra mile. There's a saying, the extra mile is never crowded. This is an important trait that anyone who wants to succeed in these times of great change must inculcate. And it is not easy. This is about that extra time that you spend on a project or a task or a test or in practicing for a game in order to make it perfect. It is about a proactive mindset and a commitment to excellence. Putting in that extra bit of effort will set yourself apart and help you achieve greater success. The late, great Kobe Bryant talked about the Mamba mentality. Kobe Bryant's practice regimen adopted the Mamba mindset, a mindset centered around tough, relentless, and intense training. This approach is defined by prioritizing consistent practice. Kobe would train 3 times a day during parts of the season to gain advantage over most players who would only train once a day. And he believed that over 5 to 6 years, this accumulated effort would create a gap that his competitors could never close. The same applies to business as well. The people who do that little bit extra every day and show the passion that is required to solve a problem will always go far. They will ultimately separate themselves from the crowd in a few years. So once again, go that extra mile. That extra mile is never crowded. The fifth habit that I want to talk about is about having an ownership mindset. This is another foundational habit that will take you far in life. Always assume full responsibility and accountability for every task that you do. Also, when you set about to perform a task that is part of a major project, make sure you have full belief in the overall mission. In order to do this, keep asking yourself the question, why are we doing this? Till you're crystal clear on the mission. A substantially large percent of people who work for the big corporate organizations don't do this. And the result is that they have a robotic view of the tasks that they perform. In turn, these organizations flounder when new technologies emerge. In my own field, we're at OKX, we are building the foundational architecture for blockchain finance. I see every day that the best product managers I have are the ones who own the outcome. They don't just execute tasks, they are the strategic drivers who take the firm forward. What I have also seen is that such people don't blame others when failure happens. They take responsibility and go about identifying what's wrong. People with an ownership mindset always stand out. If you want to win, be one who owns the outcome. The next habit may be one that is difficult for some personality types, but it is important. And it is to be a precise and impactful communicator. Throughout my career, I've seen many different personality types who communicate in different ways. There are, and I'm sure a lot of you here in school and in professional life would have seen that as well. There are the ramblers, the quiet ones, there are the storytellers, the philosophers, and then there are the effective communicators, the problem solvers. The problem solvers have a unique ability to take a complex topic and break it down. They take every situation, explain the problem, the actions needed to solve the problem, and how they plan to go about it. In most organizations today, especially the bigger ones, there are meetings where you sometimes come out and wonder what just happened. Meetings that waste everybody's time. So when you encounter an effective communicator, you don't forget that person in a hurry. The ability to communicate effectively is crucial for success in personal and professional life. An effective communicator builds strong relationships and resolves conflicts and is an important leader in every organization. Now, communications take a different tone when you take on leadership roles. Depending on where you are in your journey, sometimes you may need to rally your team, make a speech about a call to action. There's a great story about Nike's co-founder, Phil Knight. Nike started off as a company called Blue Ribbon in 1964, distributing Onitsuka sneakers in the United States. Onitsuka was a Japanese shoe brand that was created in 1949 after the war, and in the late 70s it merged with a couple of companies to create the firm called ASICS, right? So Nike originally was called Blue Ribbon, and they started off their journey by distributing Onitsuka sneakers in the United States. Now, one day in 1972, Onitsuka suddenly revoked their exclusivity, forcing a moment where Blue Ribbon had to produce their own sneakers to survive. When they received the news, the team was in total shock. But Phil Knight turned it around when he addressed them. He made it a Blue Ribbon's moment. He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, "This is the moment we've been waiting for. Our moment. Our supplier, Onitsuka, has limited us for years. Who among you is not tired of that? It's time to face the facts. Whether we win or lose," he said, "it'll be on our terms, with our ideas, with our brands. Let's not see this as a crisis. Let's see it as a liberation." What a powerful message at a time where he just turned it around on its head. And the message drove home. It was a rallying cry, and a few months later, Blue Ribbon released their first sneaker onto the market. It was called Nike Cortez, and the rest is history. So just do it improve your communication skills. The next habit is not exactly a habit, but it is something that you'll need to do in life that is probably an effort where you do a bit of self-conditioning. It is about learning to fail. Thomas Edison is famous for his perseverance in the journey to creating the modern light bulb. It took thousands of attempts, and before he succeeded, he said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." So in your career, as you progress in your career, you'll end up taking risks of various magnitudes. Of course, you can always play it safe and lead a reasonably comfortable life. But if you set lofty goals for yourself, you will need to take a few risks. And if you do, you'll likely fail a number of times. And when that happens, each time you fail, you'll need to have the courage and the tenacity to dust yourself and carry on. One way to do it is to take manageable risks in low-stakes situations very early on in your life. Because failing early on in your career can actually be a blessing. It builds resilience and teaches you to continuously innovate. But my lesson, and the lesson that I've learned the hard way, is don't view failure at any point in time as an end, but as a necessary part of your professional journey. Now, and as I go towards the end of my speech here, the last habit is probably a bit of a controversial one, right? It is about learning to burn your bridges. In 49 BC, Julius Caesar led his army across the Rubicon River, a boundary separating his province from Italy, intending to march on Rome. After crossing the Rubicon, he ordered his troops to burn the bridge they used to cross, eliminating any possibility of retreat. The act symbolized an irreversible decision to commit to a course of action with no turning back. This is probably the most important thing I'll be telling you all today. So let me explain it a bit more. We live in times of great technological change. The AI revolution, for what it's worth, is happening before our eyes. In my own field of blockchain engineering, I can see that we are at a tipping point with more and more assets being bought and sold on public blockchains. There are many people in various stages of traditional professions, traditional finance for instance, who feel that they're stuck, who feel that they're in a rut. But they're also afraid to move from their comfort zone, from a well-paying job, a comfortable role in a recognized firm, to take on new challenges. If you take the step to leave your comfort zone, you will have to commit to yourself that you will not turn back. Burning your bridges is not for everyone, but for those who want to reach what I call as the escape velocity in your professional lives, it is an absolute requirement. And your success will depend on your courage and fortitude to leave your comforts behind and step into the unknown. So I hope these 8 habits resonated with you. In the end, what I'd like to say is that we live in a great country, a great democracy, where our Constitution and the Bill of Rights offer us the belief that if you work hard and persevere, you can achieve tremendous success. We derive our strength from diversity, from smart people who come here from all over and help us build some of the most phenomenally valuable companies in the world. Over the years, this has allowed the United States to play a leadership role in technological innovation. And most of that has happened in your backyard, right here in Silicon Valley. The education that we get in America's great universities, including Berkeley, are top-notch and a driver of this innovation cycle. All of you and me are beneficiaries and stand at the vanguard of this progress. So I'm quite confident that most of you will find the clarity that you need in uncertain times. What we actually need to focus on is responsible corporate leadership and inclusion as these new technologies become rampant. The core traits and habits that I spoke about are building blocks for tomorrow's leaders. Leaders who are probably present in this hall today and who will go forth and build the corporations of the future. My wish for all of you is the tenacity to go the extra mile and many failures with soft landings as you march ahead to a successful future. Thank you very much. I can take any questions if there are, or I can take it from the chair, however you want.
I can raise my voice. I have a question.
Yes.
So one of the things that you mentioned, Roshan, is asking for help. And I think that's such an important trait, and would love to hear a little bit more about strategies and approaches that we can take to ask others for help and creating a mindset for ourselves as well that asking for help is the right thing to do without feeling like we're troubling other people.
Well, firstly, I think the idea is just a really important approach.
Can you repeat the question?
Do you want to have give the mic? Thank you.
Yeah, just around approaches of asking for help and how we can reset our mindset so that we are able to ask others for help in a more easier way for ourselves too.
What did you say your name was?
My name is Mumfei.
Okay. The first thing to do is to sort of really make sure that the person you're asking for help is the person who's capable of helping you, or is a person who knows someone who's capable of helping you. That's number one. So that is the basic minimum research that you need to do, right? And secondly, the one thing I found over many, many years is you have to be very direct, right? Don't be apologetic. Be direct. Ask exactly what you want and let them know how that help is going to sort of really help you progress in your career. And if you do that, I personally have never found anyone who says no, right? In fact, I've found people who go the extra mile and you know, stick with you, become your friend, and kind of help you throughout your professional career. So it is not just the act of asking for help, it's about ultimately creating a mentor for yourself. I hope that sort of answers the question. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kiki. So I did some research for your career. You got great career. So my question is, when you mentioned about ask help, so when you got appointed for the CEO, did you ask for some help from your friend or your mentor?
Absolutely. In fact, I continue to ask for help every day, and in the sense that, yes, I lead the U.S. organization, but I cannot lead the U.S. organization without the 50 to 60 different functional teams that help me create the products that I can launch here in the U.S., right? So to me, it is one big team, right? And my job is to bring that team together, right? So there's compliance and product and engineering and legal, you know, a plethora of operations teams, the business teams, the strategy teams. They can't be all pulling against each other. they all have to be pulling together in order for us to be successful. So I think my biggest role is to sort of really make sure that all of those teams are aligned, and in that sense, you know, the idea is to sort of really, asking for help is actually not the expression that I'd like to use, but it is asking those teams in the best possible manner to be a part of the larger initiative or the larger mission that we have to make OKX successful in the US. And when you do it the right way, they all come together, right? And I think that's part of what I found leading organizations in corporate America is 90% of the job is to sort of really make everybody believe in your mission, right? And once you're able to do that, then it's about pulling the teams together and making sure that we approach the market and the product in the right way. So it's a roundabout way of answering your question. I hope I did it.
I have a question here. One more?
Sure.
Thank you. I really enjoyed your sharing, and I want to ask about from leadership and building people perspective. You have a very strong military background, so you were trained with good habits, discipline, mental toughness. But I bet in your leadership career, you might work with people who have lower standard or weaker character. I'm wondering, do you only work with people who share the same standard, or do you have an effective way to build people to your standard from leadership perspective? Thank you.
That's a very complex question. The idea of leadership is to sort of really bring people together, right? You'll never find in a group of people, if you put a group of people in a room, you'll never find everyone with the same strengths and the same weaknesses, right? And if you do, that's the wrong team that you have together. My greatest belief is that the best team you have is a diverse team. And a diverse team is a team where you're able to sort of really understand everyone's strengths. Everyone will have weaknesses, and that's okay, right? But if you're able to look at each person's individual strengths and make that work for your business and your product and your market, then you're successful, right? And in that sense, I don't tend to look at a group of people and say, all right, you know, this person is not someone I can work with. No. The idea, and I think this should be the idea for any leader in any organization, should be to look for strengths and try to sort of really pull those strengths in and make those strengths work for your organization, right? The other point is, when I hire people, right, especially my management team, when I hire for key roles within the organization, I don't just look at the resume, right? And I think this is an important part of what you just asked. For me, I look to see how the person has performed. I look to understand, you know, where he's failed, or he or she has failed, you know, how he or she recovered from failures, how he or she has actually sort of succeeded in different projects. So I try to go into specifics that gives me an understanding of how an individual will come in and hit the ground running when they are part of the organization, right? For me, attitude is a big, big thing. So I keep telling my recruiting team, you have to look for attitude. This can be someone who comes from the best school with the best GPA. I don't care, right? I care about a person who has a can-do attitude, who will get things done, right? And I've made mistakes as well. I've made mistakes in hiring people, right? And the best people I've hired are people who come in and actually get things done, right? I talked about the different types of conversationalists, right? The ramblers, the philosophers, the storytellers. I've seen them all. But what really, really thrills me is when I see a person who says, "Don't worry about it, I'll get it done," right? And goes about and executes it for me. Thank you. Is it?
Thank you, Roshan, for that thoughtful and forward-looking keynote. Let's give him one more round of applause. Thank you. I think your insights captured a theme that's increasingly important, how innovation and responsibility can coexist, especially in a space that moves as fast as fintech and crypto. And as a fellow Zicklin alum, it's great to see a bit of that New Yorker energy and entrepreneurial mindset here at Berkeley today. Proof that innovation and responsibility can travel far beyond geography.